What in the hell? I finished Killer is Dead, and I don't have a clue how to compile my thoughts about it. This is my first time experiencing a game made by the auteur game director known as Suda 51. I was drawn to the store page like a moth to the flame. The stylized art style combined with hack and slash combat led to a package that ticked a few boxes for me. I'm not going to bury the lead here. I really like this game. I'm gonna mention some quirks and drawbacks with the desire to give a more comprehensive portrayal of my game experience. Let's start off this video right now with the beginning of the game. You take control of Mondo Zappa. Yeah, for real, that's his name. Who is clearly some kind of executioner as he hunts down some goon in an alley. Again, I have to address how much this art style with the super thick line works hits me in the happy parts. You get to hear the titular line for the first of many, many times in the game.
The darkness.
Killer is dead.
The mission ends as he succeeds at executing his target. My playtime for this was roughly 39 seconds out of 4 minutes and 46 seconds per my footage. Most of the mission is essentially a cutscene. This is pretty atypical in my experience, as many games in the genre are very gameplay first and tend to go with the John Carmack school of storytelling. As many people I'm sure have heard, he famously said, "Story in a game is like story in a porn movie. It's expected to be there, but it's not important." It would appear Suda does not agree with this sentiment, as the story in this game is confusing at times, but the game is certainly committed to telling it. The story is told in a mission structure. Killer is Dead is split into individual missions as well as side missions and some dates. I'll get to the dates later. There's a total of 12 story missions, and we discover that Mondo is a bit of a ladies' man. He works for some kind of shadowy government organization as a killer. His boss, or maybe more accurately, his associate, is Brian Roses. Also, again, real name, who has turned himself into some kind of robot-human hybrid. He'll occasionally stop by when needed in mission to drop off a turret or something like that, but he's mostly in charge of lining up jobs for Mondo. He has another associate named Vivienne, who, much like Brian, seems to be more the brains of the operation, although she'll roll up with a motorcycle and go nuts when needed, as you've seen before. The final member of Mondo's team is Miku, who's a young goofy girl who acts as his assistant. She's a total ditz, but he keeps her around because she makes him soft-boiled eggs to eat in the morning. Yeah, also, for real. Also, Mika can come in and revive Mondo when you fail. I'm no doctor, so I don't know how this works, but just don't think about it. The template of the game goes something like this. You start a main story mission where the crew sits around the office while being introduced to the target by a client. You will complete the mission, which will be a gauntlet of lesser enemies that leads to a final boss battle. Once Mondo gets the kill, the mission will conclude back inside the office where Vivian and Brian will argue about payment. There was a line about how they're a government agency early on in the game and they receive taxpayer money, but them getting stiffed on their bill seems to be a reoccurring gag with no real resolution. After a few missions, an Audrey Hepburn type will request for a man named David to be killed. He escapes Mondo's grasp, and there's clearly some kind of history there, but you're left in the dark for a while after this. You would think Mondo would remember a man wearing this, but, you know. The story seems to forget about David for quite a few episodes before coming back to him, and keeps more of a Monster of the Week vibe for a while, before coming and looping back to this part of the story to finish the last few missions. Let's talk gameplay. I played quite a few games recently where I found myself criticizing gameplay and sounding more harsh than I truly feel. Thankfully with this game, I don't have to worry about that. The gameplay is very much a character action vibe like Devil May Cry or Bayonetta, and mostly achieves what it's going for. I would not say it's quite to that level, but the combat is competently put together and is plenty fun. Mondo has a katana and a gun arm attachment. His gun arm is actually called Muscleback, and that's like a whole other thing. One of the gameplay systems is that he has a combo meter, and the higher that meter reaches, the faster his attacks will become. So you have gameplay benefits for getting better at the game. He has a couple of gauges to monitor as well. He has a health bar, which is a series of diamonds on top of the screen. They're diamonds, of course, because he also has a blood gauge. I called this the adrenaline gauge because he can do these final attacks based on this gauge. For some enemies, these attacks can be used to quickly dispatch weak enemies to get to fighting more powerful ones, and a lot of the powerful foes have to be finished off using these adrenaline attacks with using the blood meter. The blood meter is filled by drops from fallen enemies. Mondo's gun arm has several attachments and starts off as a basic gun to attack enemies at range, but later you can unlock a freeze ray and a charge cannon. He'll never be Mega Man, but these attachments do come in handy. While running missions, you find many types of collectibles. Some of them level up your health, some your blood meter. The yellow shards can be used in menu after missions to level up Mondo's skills or buff his arm attachments. And lastly, the better you do, the more money you make at the end of the mission to buy things in shops. Another collectible you can find is actually a woman named Scarlet. This sexy nurse character is hiding throughout the levels of the main story, and she'll give you a blood injection to refill your blood gauge. Yeah, there's nothing else going on there, huh? Each time you find Scarlet, you'll unlock a challenge mission that you can complete for her. After completing a mission, a side mission, usually using the same map, will usually open up, and they can be completed to collect more money and, again, feed the upgrade loop. There's no avoiding it. I gotta talk about the Gigolo missions now, or the dates. Ugh. Mondo's Gigolo missions are dates where Mondo goes out with women and utilizes gifts bought in the shops with your mission winnings. The goal of these is to make eye contact with a woman until she looks away. Now's your time to perv out of your mind and ogle her naughty bits. By doing this, you're building Mondo's guts gauge. Once it reaches its peak, you can give her one of your gifts, and it will build points to impressing her. What gifts should you give this girl? There are special glasses Mondo can use which serve a dual purpose. For one, they build up his guts gauge faster while admiring the women, and secondly, it shows you a glimpse at what presents might build the most affection for Mondo. Okay, so the glasses are a triple threat actually, because they also grant him the ability to see through the ladies' clothing into their undergarments. Maybe I buried the lead there a bit. If these ladies catch you ogling them, they'll eventually throw some water in Mondo's face and leave. Any gifts you've given to them are gone forever. Collecting the gifts for these women is the biggest money sink of the game, but these dates are worth completing as they reward you with extra gun arm components. So at this point, I think it's obvious that the sensitive of heart, when it comes to objectifying women, will not like this game. I enjoyed it, and I had a hearty laugh or two while doing the Gigolo missions, in spite of how silly I felt about myself. In my opinion, the entirety of this game was all in good spirits, and that's the way I look at it. If someone were to be of another opinion, I'd understand that perspective. I did each of the Gigolo missions once and moved along after completing them, but completing all of the achievements requires giving a lot of gifts and doing these dates over and over again. I won't be going that far.
especially for you. Use it with care.
I've mostly had good things to say thus far. That's nice, huh? Well, let me have a quick interjection about the PC port sandwiched here. There's some quality of life blemishes here. Firstly, the game runs at 30 FPS on PC. The max resolution's 1080p. For all 5 of you that watched my monster project on the Resident Evil Village, I want you to know that I apologize to that game for complaining there was no FOV slider. In Killer is Dead, the camera is often jammed up on our protagonist's shoulder, obscuring enemies, and if the invisible cameraman could have just taken a few steps back, I would have been thankful. What I'm trying to say is this game's settings menu should be called an upsetting menu. I'll see myself out. It's been some time since I'd played a game in 30 frames a second, and I was honestly confused about what I was experiencing. Thankfully, Reddit informed me that the game was just a very straightforward console port. I'll say that as a 30 FPS game, I can honestly say it feels smoother than some other games on poorly optimized engines where the frame pacing is all over the place, but it's definitely something that you have to get past to enjoy the game. Yet again, the Japanese show their disdain for the PC market. It's sad that this is the platform that truly keeps older games like this alive. I'd be curious to know the last time someone fired up an Xbox 360 and played this game as compared to the PC release. I digress, I'm just rambling now. Some people seem to have had luck configuring higher resolutions or 60 FPS, but for me that caused a whole new slew of issues, so I left the game pretty much vanilla for the bulk of my run. I'm the type of person that tries to keep myself separated from negativity. Half of YouTube is some guy saying, this band sucks, this game sucks, this movie sucks, and here's why. I never want to be that guy. Thankfully, I don't take myself seriously in the slightest, so if I play something terrible that I don't like, I'll just stop playing. I have no interest in exerting my energy on a product not worth it. I'm critical of the PC port, but it doesn't take away from the fact that I still very much enjoyed the game. It's a complete fever dream at times, but I absolutely loved every second of it, and I wouldn't have had it any other way. When it comes to the actual plot of the story, I remain vague, other than briefly mentioning David and the story delivery method. Frankly, that's because I don't feel qualified to discuss it. While using Reddit to figure out some of the PC port's quirks, I stumbled upon several Reddit threads, all of which say something on the line of, "Some people just don't get this game. It's not for some people." Like, I count myself among those number in a lot of ways. Killer is Dead is highly stylized, silly, and utilizes a lot of metaphor in conveying its story, and I feel that one playthrough wasn't enough for me to comprehend the full depth of its plot. I'm a sucker for Japanese developers or filmmakers doing their own thing with American settings and characters, and this game's loaded with them. Often people miss the mark and don't see that these efforts are often made with tongue planted firmly in cheek. Killer is Dead makes it very clear when it's parodying certain tropes, and I was along for the ride the whole time. I was devastated when my Nier video didn't turn out as I hoped, and that delayed me from making any further content. Then I stopped several times from writing anything on this game for fear of making an ass of myself when discussing the story or things like that, since both the combat systems and the story are deeper than first glance would indicate. I didn't want to ignore this interesting game though, because fears of doing a bad story summation, so I've left this video brief. I'm glad I played it, and I can easily recommend it, especially at its going rate these days. The game took me about 10 hours to complete with some of the side content, and it includes a awesome DLC mission with a dope vampire storyline. If you're a fan of action combat, stylized visuals, Suda 51's other games, or you just want to ogle some ladies and win their hearts, no judgment zone here, bro, then I could easily recommend you check this out, so long as you're willing to forgive its PC port issues on Steam, that is. Thanks for stopping by.
So, this is what you call your reward.
Oh man, you gotta be kidding me. Mondo just disappeared with the client?
In the end, we couldn't even calculate our costs. Another job showing red in the books.
Damn that Mondo. He's got some game.